Hello, nerds! My friends, we have Paget on the show, the one and only. Welcome, Paget. What do you want to say to our friends to start this thing off?
I saw some comments, so I will say hello, nerds.
Well, I am super thrilled to get you on the show. I know we've had a lot of people asking for this collaboration.
Yeah.
And Dynamic is saying that my mic apparently is working very well because her ears are probably bleeding right now from the loud greeting.
Oh, sorry about that. Maybe it's my mic settings.
No. Your mic is perfect. I think I just get a little excited at the beginning of these shows. So I thought what we could do is we could first start with I'll ask you a few questions. You ask me a few questions. Maybe we talk about the state of the race. And then after we get all that done, if time permits, we can discuss the whole Shane Gillis thing. Yeah, but we're not gonna go there right away.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of general topics to hit before we get there. Mm-hmm. So does that sound cool to you?
That sounds awesome. Yes. Thank you.
So the thing that I wanted to start off asking you, so I'm going to give you my three questions first, and then we'll turn the tables. So my question for you is, like, a lot of people got to know you because of your Yang Gang content, and they don't know as much about your kind of before Yang life. And and I thought it might be kind of interesting, if you don't mind, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, before Andrew Yang showed up on your radar, what were you doing, and a little bit about you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a lot. Well, immediately before I even just did my first video, which was just a random thought I had, and it was so not planned, and I just wanted to do it. But before that, I'm an actor and then also a writer. And so I was actually, and I still am, finishing a script with a writing partner. And it actually I don't know if you know who Vincent Chin is, or,
was he a victim of a crime at some point?
Of a hate crime back in 1982
in Michigan,
Detroit, Michigan, during the oil crisis. And when a lot of people were blaming Japanese imports, for the American cars industry basically tanking, because they were just more fuel efficient. And an auto worker whose stepson just got fired, he basically smashed the head of Vincent Chin, and called him, a Jap and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Because he thought he was Japanese and he was responsible for all of the jobs that were being lost. But really, Vincent Chin was Chinese American, and he was also an auto worker too, like an engineer. And so kind of the irony of that whole thing, that they were both in the same boat. Anyway, just finished that script, and
that's some heavy stuff.
It is some heavy stuff, but our script is it's not a story about a white guy killing an Asian guy. That's not actually the story. We have a different take that I can't share, but it's just a human story. But anyway, so also, auditioning and things like that, because I'm an actor. And then taking different workshops and classes and things. And I also work part-time in digital sales. And I work from home. So that's why I can do these videos. But yeah, that's kind of my story. That's what I was doing right before the whole Andrew Yang stuff. Mostly creative focused, things. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I think I saw in an interview that you had done on maybe on a podcast, that you weren't always super into politics. Is that fair?
I really, no, I mean, I couldn't have been more not into politics. Actually, it would actually annoy some people that like they would bring up something that's happening in politics, and I would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I do not care. Sorry. And they're like, God, you don't want to talk about anything relevant to what's happening in this country. And I'm like, sorry, but it just doesn't affect me. And I was one of those frustrating people that were now like, oh my gosh, wake up. We need to do something now. I was one of those people. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you were apathetic, and even during the Hillary Trump sort of general election, because that was pretty intense. You were just like, hey, these are just politicians talking, whatever.
No. Okay. Well, that's a little bit different. Like that. I mean, okay. I know that sounds whatever, but no, that's a little different in that. Here's the thing. I was for Bernie in 2015, and I didn't have anything really against Hillary, if I'm being honest. I just thought Bernie was better. He was going to do more for the country. And then when Bernie didn't, I like, it was like a little bit of a shot to my heart. And then I recovered, and I'm like, all right, well, we need to defeat. I mean, I just assumed we would beat Trump. I was like, it's just going to be a landslide. Like, okay. So my involvement was, wow, this is a bit of a joke that he's actually the person running against Hillary, but he's never going to win. So that was my attitude.
So you didn't think that it was an all hands on deck moment, that you were like, well, it's obvious that she'll beat him.
Yes.
And it's a fait accompli.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot of people thought that. It's similar with Brexit. A lot of people thought that.
Yes, exactly. It was so paralleled, right?
Yeah. It's weird how that works.
Yeah.
And so now you've got this channel that has a legion of amazing loyal fans that are really enjoying what you're doing. Yeah. So like tell us a little bit about what it was like. So you did that first video, and what were you thinking it would turn into, and how's that kind of evolved?
I literally thought that would just be one video about me really supporting this candidate I really believe in, and no one would watch it, and that would be it. And then I would just turn my channel into like a whole bunch of random stuff, just mostly just like almost to document things going on in my life. Like I didn't think I would actually even get any following, if I'm being quite honest. But then I started noticing, oh, wait, there's actually a community that feels like Andrew Yang isn't getting enough exposure, and people aren't talking about him enough. Yeah. And I was like, look, if there's like a demand for this, and if people want to see more of other people showing support for him, then like I can do that, because I completely believe in this candidate. And I also, obviously, I found your channel too. Like right when I started up, like yours was like also one of the very first. And so I was watching.
There's not that many of us.
No, there aren't. I think that there's going to be a lot more though, as he gains more traction. I hope so too. Yeah. It's only good for his campaign.
Yeah. What's cool is I think as more and more people create content about this campaign, it'll be neat to see different perspectives, right? Like you've got Fred, who's like literally driving around in a truck often as he's like doing these podcasts.
Oh my gosh, Fred Ramey, you're so awesome. You're so cool. Shout out to Fred if he's listening to this.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun to have all these different perspectives, and you're literally in like that whole Hollywood scene, like writing scripts and and then you've got people bringing all kinds of backgrounds to the gang, which I think is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I know. I love the whole hashtag #MyYang story.
Yeah.
Seeing all the different kinds of people from different places. That was fascinating.
Yes. Yeah, especially because the narrative, a lot of people were reporting on in the press is like, oh, it's a bunch of young white males.
Disaffected white men, white nationalists, blah, 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 all this stuff.
And then you see, just like America, a diversity of support.
Yeah, exactly. I think he might actually have the most diverse base of supporters that any other candidate, I would argue, potentially.
I think that's probably true, especially like politically diverse. Like if you look at, I think Warren and Sanders have, hardcore always voted Democrat generally, maybe Sanders is a little more diverse, but Warren, I think, is pretty much right in the party's kind of core base.
Well, I think, so I don't know how accurate this is, so I might be like saying something a little bit off or whatever, but I think Crystal Ball from The Hill, she even said that she thinks Warren's main base are like white liberal elites. I think that's what she basically said.
Yeah.
And that Bernie has a much more diverse base than Warren, and that there's actually not that much overlap, strangely, even though they're both like, labeled progressives. I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't really know.
Yeah. I would not be surprised. I mean, I was looking at some data from the YouGov polling, and what was interesting was how many independents still don't know about Yang, which I think when they become more aware of him, it will be a huge boost. Unfortunately, they're also unlikely to participate in the Democratic primary. We may have a candidate who's better in the general than in the primary, which is frustrating.
That is very frustrating. Yeah.
But so what do you think you're going to be doing for the channel going forward? Like, what do you have planned?
You mean when he becomes president? Or do you just mean like in the near future?
Yeah, that's between now and then.
I don't know. It's like, I mean, I like keeping up with the updates of Andrew Yang and everything and it's quite interesting to look at all the different kind of media coverage. And so I like covering that. And then, but I also like, in the off chance that someone from his campaign watches the videos, I also like providing some constructive, from my own opinion, personal opinion, right? Whatever that means, criticism when that is, when I feel like that is useful or needed. I know a lot of people hate that. Like, I don't know if you have this experience, but, and this is not a bad thing at all, but I do feel like there's a certain subset of Yang Gang who all they want to hear is whatever's positive. Like they don't want to actually hear anything that could actually be helpful for his campaign or progress his campaign forward. They have a limited team. Like I know that they have a limited team and he doesn't have all the resources and he uses us as a resource to give him feedback. And so it becomes a bit of this echo chamber thing, but I personally, my channel, I don't want it to just be an echo chamber. I want it to celebrate all the good things and then also recognize where, we can offer some helpful criticism or feedback, for him too. What's your experience been like with that?
Yeah, I think every now and then I did a stream a few days ago and I was like, I wasn't a huge fan of the opening statement giveaway thing. And then a lot of people were saying like, oh, wow, you seem so down on Yang. I was like, no, man, I freaking love this guy.
Yeah. That's,
this is one decision. Like I would have done it differently. I don't know if I'm right. We don't have an alternate universe to A/B test this, but like, it's cool. Like we can't agree on everything.
Yeah, totally. I don't think he would want us to be like that. Then we become a little cultish, Yeah. But anyway, whatever. Like everyone has their own opinion, but I think it's really great. But it's great, right? When people are like, look, I don't totally agree with you, but I respect what you're saying and I can like respect your perspective. That doesn't mean I agree with you. Like I love those comments. It shows that we can have healthy discourse, but then just like people have literally been like, you should shut down your channel, delete this video, blah, blah, blah. It's hurtful for his campaign. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, guys, let's calm down. Let's get out of the group think. Like, Yeah,
I got a little, I think I got the most most critical feedback when I think in one video I said, the freedom dividend, maybe $500 a month is more pragmatic, as a starting point, and it would be easier to fund with the VAT and that kind of thing. And people were just not happy at all. And I was like, hey, I don't know, like, any there's like my old math teacher said, there's 99 ways to skin a cat. Like there's no one perfect thing. Like who knows? Like so, but yeah, I think in general, I get a lot more people encouraged that that we do keep it real.
Yes.
And that we're not just sort of like fanboys or like, you know, everything that the campaign does is perfect. I think that helps make sure that our channels are authentic, right? Like
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. We don't want to be like the Fox News of the Yang Gang.
No. I mean, that would be disingenuous too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people even actually really want to listen, or maybe actually some people do, but you're right. You're absolutely right that it is actually a smaller percentage of people who are saying that. And the more like the larger majority of people are saying, thank you for keeping it real and, you know, for being honest about what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the weird things about content creation in that the negative comments, they sting disproportionate to the positive.
So weird, isn't it? So strange. So you suffer from that a little bit as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all human, and when people say a negative thing, like because you're putting yourself out there, you're working, you're trying to be helpful.
Yes.
And you know, but at the same time, like there's so many people that are so supportive of us. I mean, right now we have almost 300 people simultaneously on this stream.
Oh, really? I can't see any of these like stats. Okay.
Sorry, it's the UI. I don't think it allows me to share like the full, but there's 280 concurrent viewers right now. And
hey guys.
Yeah. So I think the support we're getting way outweighs any of the negative stuff. And the negative stuff, like I think it's cool. Like people should give their opinion and be constructive the same way we're constructive with Yang. I'm sure he's not, you know, like he appreciates kind of getting all sides as well.
Yeah, I think he does. Yes, I agree. I'm curious. Okay, so what were you doing? Like, when did you get onto the whole Yang Gang? And also, actually, no, let's start with the first question. In 2016, like, how did you feel about the election? Who were you supporting and why?
Yeah. So I was originally a Bernie supporter. And before I was a Bernie supporter, I was a supporter of Lawrence Lessig, who was the longest of long shots, right? And then he didn't pan out, but I really loved how like he was trying to solve like a root cause problem, same way that Yang is really trying to solve a big problem,
right?
And so I was like, wow, yeah, this Lessig guy, I agree. Campaign finance and all the money in politics is just like it makes everything all messed up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he didn't really get any traction. And then so I moved to Bernie. And I was really excited about Bernie. And I felt like I kind of was to be honest, like I'm a former Republican. And
yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. So I was a Republican from, you know, the 90s until 2007 when Obama ran. And a funny thing, when Obama came to Seattle, which is where I was living at the time, it was like in the middle of 2007, and there was only like 300 people that showed up for him.
Wow!
Because at that time he was like this lightweight junior senator. He gave one good speech. He has a book, but you know he's got to wait his turn because it was obvious that it should have been. Everybody felt it was obvious that it was Hillary's turn. And, you know, maybe he could be in the Hillary cabinet or, you know, be a surrogate.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I am a big fan of underdogs. Being a Obama, Lessig, Yang supporter, you know, I'm not a big fan of like dynasties and that kind of thing. And so I was like, oh, this guy's great. And of course, like, you know, he's smart and articulate. So that was easy to support him. But then when Bernie was running in 15 and 16, I kind of was pissed, to be honest, at the Democratic National Committee for.
Well, yeah, a lot of people were.
You know, like it didn't feel like he was getting his fair shot. And I feel like right now, when I see him on stage, you know, it's sort of like oh, this is weird. I don't mean it this way, but it's like
Just
an
say it, Tom.
ex-girlfriend, like an ex-girlfriend. And you're like, oh, what could have been? You know? But you're like, our time was before Bernie, you know? Our time was in the 60s, you know? So so now I see him and I was like, you know, thanks a lot, DNC. Like you really, I don't think gave Bernie a great chance when he was ready to go and fired up. And now he's back again and he's still very compelling, but his time, I think, has passed. So then I supported Hillary, and because I saw our alternative.
Right.
Now, if the Republicans had put up someone like Jeb versus Hillary, I would have had to think about it. I would have had to think about it because I was not really impressed with the way Hillary ran her campaign. And I didn't think she was a very inspirational, charismatic leader. I thought she was super smart and works her ass off and has a ton of experience. So I definitely thought that she should play at the highest levels of government. I just didn't think the Oval was for her.
Yeah.
But but because then when Trump got the nomination, I actually was excited because I was like, oh, she's just gonna mop his ass up, right? Like this is gonna be like there's no way this guy who probably didn't even want to be president is now gonna be put in this situation. Like this is gonna be kind of fun. Because I unlike you, I've been a political junkie since like I could walk.
I can tell. Yes, I can tell.
Yeah, I would look
I didn't even know who Lessig was, so
yeah. So like I still remember when I was young, my dad would always watch the McLaughlin Group, which was like this old Sunday kind of politics show. And he and I would watch that while my friends were watching football with their dads. And so it was just a strange kind of childhood, but that was what I was into. But now I'm into football as well. So go Hawks. So, but yeah. So when I heard that Trump got the nomination, I was like, oh, this will be so exciting. And then from a family point of view, for career reasons, we had an opportunity to work in Europe. And so we moved out to Switzerland around the time of the election. So I was watching it with great interest from Switzerland, which I'm still in right now. And I still remember the night of the election. And I because of the time difference, like I wasn't going to be able to watch the votes come in real time. And the last article I read before going to bed was a New York Times article about here are the states you'll need to watch to know like when Hillary has wrapped it up.
Yes.
And so I was like, you know, okay, yeah, that's cool. Like we'll have her as president.
Oh my gosh, you waking up.
And then I woke up and I fired up the phone, and I think I woke up super early, and then it was like, oh, Florida, like some of the East Coast states were starting to come in, and I was like, oh, this isn't right. Like these were not supposed to be this close. Like, why is this too close to call already?
Yeah.
And then obviously it just became a snowball of crazy states being called for Trump. And since then, I've been, then I was kind of like, all right, well, you know what? It may not be that bad. He's a businessman. He was just acting for the election. When he gets into the Oval Office, like the weight of the presidency, his place in American and world history he will rise to that occasion. And obviously that didn't happen, you know, almost the opposite.
He looked actually scared somethingless when, those videos when he's like realized, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like it was actually comedic when I was watching him, like, oh my gosh, he is so frightened right now. He's terrified. He's like, what have I done? But you know, he settled into it.
Well, now he's found his own sort of approach. And I agree with you. I mean, I heard when, his attorney, Michael something, was testifying that, he didn't really run thinking he would, win. It was more of like a way to build up the Trump brand. And so I agree with you. I think when he finally won, it was a surprise to him. And but now almost worse than that, like he's actually found this oddly comfortable mode of operation that he likes.
Yep.
That's exciting for him.
Yep.
And he gets to spar with people, but
yeah,
it's just kind of embarrassing.
I just think he thinks it's all entertaining, really, and feeding his ego. But, that's just my perspective on it.
We totally have to, like, that's where, well, let me ask you this. Like, obviously, well, no, maybe not obviously. If Yang doesn't get the nomination,
Yeah.
I presume you'd be supportive of whatever the DNC spits out. Ooh, maybe not.
Okay, no, it's interesting. I know I'm going to get so much hate for this, but it depends. If it's Sanders, if it's even Warren, if it's Warren or Sanders, then yes, I will hands down vote for them.
You didn't say Harris.
Okay, because I'm not gonna name any of the other people, but just saying, if it's Bernie, 100% will. Okay, even though I disagree with a lot of his policies, but here's the thing. It's like, I would just be so disappointed in the American people for having a candidate who was presenting the clearest solutions that we absolutely need, that are essential for right now, and being so blind to it. I almost feel like a second Trump presidency would wake people the heck up. Okay. Like, do you know what I mean? They'd be like, wait, how could we go wrong again? And people will have to, like, it would just make absolutely the immediacy of having to restructure everything, rethink everything that we've been doing thus far. I think it would let someone who's actually going to be effective really change things up. I know that seems like a flawed sort of theory, but it's something that I am trying to, like, grapple with myself as to, like, what would actually be the best for the country, actually, in the short term and long term.
Do you think a second Trump term would be a wake-up call?
That is how I am seeing it from, like, a very top line perspective. Would I like living in a second Trump presidency as, like, myself? No. Right. He validates a lot of ideas and actions and crap that is just not okay. But we need structural change. And I don't know if I see any of the other politicians really doing any of that effectively. That's my issue. So it's just, I just don't know is my thing. I'm not sure yet.
Well, you'll be happy to know that a lot of people agree with you on the chat right now.
They do. Oh, well, thanks, guys.
So
Thanks
they're not going crazy. They might not be happy with what I will say.
Oh, okay. No. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. So I'm like, I don't know. So go ahead. Yeah. What's your opinion on this?
So my opinion is that this president is such a clear and present danger to this country and the world that there literally could not be a worse alternative that comes out of the Democratic candidates. Yes, many of them have flaws. Many of them are way inferior to a Yang presidency, for sure. Mm-hmm. But if you said, oh, do you want another 4 years of Trump or blank? I'm going to take blank because number one, we know what the first 4 years were like, and they kind of have been pretty, in my opinion, terrible. And number two, I'm also not sure that his mental faculties will be better in another 4 years than they are today.
Okay, that's a good point.
And I feel like the world is not getting more stable; it's getting less stable, and it requires a strong, level-headed leader in the Oval Office, not just for the country, but for the international community.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm kind of a, like, anybody but person, and But hopefully we won't have to do that. Maybe wouldn't it be great if it were the Yang presidency? Oh my God.
Yes.
Can you imagine the first press conference and he's just like normal and logical and speaking reasonably?
That's what I do know, right? Is that I just want Yang to be president. That's what I do know. So going off into these other like hypotheticals just yet, I just haven't completely made up my mind. I just feel very, very, and I think it's because we feel so passionately that he's the right person for the job that it's hard to accept an alternative, and we get so frustrated that he's not being given a fair chance to even make his case to the American people, that there's this, and here's the thing, I'm not saying this is a good quality of mine. It's not a good quality of mine. Maybe there's this little bit of this like vindictive part of me that's like, well, then we deserve it. Or, it's awful. It's awful. I'm raising my hand up. I'm saying it's awful, but just saying I'm just being real. I'm keeping it real.
I hear you. And I've heard there is that phrase like the country will get the president it deserves. But let me kind of share a slightly different perspective on that one, which is I believe the country is often misinformed by its information sources, and half of the country, like, Fox News is the number one source of news for most Americans in terms of readership, viewership.
Oh, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. So if most people statistically are consuming news from like Fox and Friends and Hannity, then it's not crazy that they're going to vote for Trump because they're being kind of steered in that direction.
Right.
And if they knew all of the facts, and then people will say, well, that they deserve to be misinformed if they're not going to go out of their way to consume other information. But I don't know, man. I think we got to acknowledge that the whole way people get information today is a little bit, a lot biased. I mean, even within the Democratic Party, we probably, I know both of us have talked about the media bias against Yang within the progressive media.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got the whole, in the general, like half of the country is going to be getting their news from Hannity and freaking Fox and Friends, and they're going to say all kinds of weird shit about the Democratic nominee. So because of that, I kind of feel like, oh God, like we have to all show up and do everything we can. And then if Trump gets reelected, I will sleep better at night knowing like, well, what else could I have done? I gave money, I created content, I got all my friends fired up. And but it's a little bit scary. Hopefully we won't be in that situation.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why that's why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah, indeed.
So that to try and ensure that we don't get into that situation. So, yeah.
Well, let's do this. Let's do this, Paget. Let's take some audience questions.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah.
So, folks, if you want to ask Paget or me
Tom,
or both questions, put them into the chat box. And I definitely will not be able to get to all of them, but I'll try and pick out some. And hopefully we can continue the conversation before we go into part 3 of the live stream, which I'll be honest, Paget and I are a little nervous about the part 3 one because we're going to be talking about sensitive topics. Okay, here's the first question I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Oh, someone wants to talk about the Shane drama. That is part 3, but we're saving that for part 3 because we know that not everybody is as into the Shane drama as we are. But so Weeb Catcher says, if Yang is president, do we think that'll be bad for China relations because he's Taiwanese? What do you think? Do you have an opinion on that one, Paget?
I personally don't think that would be the case. I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is politically correct to say at all, but
Go ahead.
he comes off much bigger than his race. I don't know, than his like race. I mean, he also doesn't really play the whole race card. And it's very, very apparent and very clear that he is American, like very American. And so I actually don't think that would actually be really much of an issue. I don't think that he seems like he's connected to like Taiwan in terms of politically, or China politically. So I don't think that would be an issue at all, but maybe I just don't know enough about it. But what about you, Tom?
I don't think it would be bad for China relations. I think it might actually be good, because the mainland Chinese, while they definitely, have had their tensions with Taiwan, in their view, like Taiwan, they see as part of China in the long run. And so the fact that Yang's parents are from Taiwan, I don't think will hurt him. I also think ultimately countries act in their self-interests, and China will want a way to come to a deal and a new engagement model with China that's good for China and that's sustainable. And I kind of feel like with Trump, he's so unpredictable and he's so sort of personality driven that it might be hard. I mean, can you imagine trying to negotiate a deal with Trump and trying to reason with him? Like, I don't think he does negotiations like, oh, well, what do you want? What do I want? Like, let's look at the shared set of facts and what assumptions are you using? And let me challenge some of the, I don't think he's very structured like that. I think he's more like, hey, this is crazy. I can't give you anything, like the way he treats his vendors,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Negotiating with vendors. Yeah.
So I'm thinking that Yang will come across to not just China, but other countries like the EU or, international bodies like the EU as a rational, pragmatic, very direct and data-driven partner.
Completely.
And he won't agree with you on everything, but you'll know where he's coming from and why. And you know that at the end of the day, he's just going to try and do the right thing for the country that will work.
Right. He has no bias. Like, he comes into everything without any bias, at least for me. He approaches everything and it's so clear that he's not coming in with bias. He's approaching things like completely as objectively as humanly possible. And I think that it'll just show, like, it'll just resonate in that way. And I don't think he needs to overprove it, or I don't think he needs to prove that he's not biased, basically. Right. So I think it'll lead to a lot more fair discussions and negotiations.
Yeah. Side note, I remember watching his interview on the Daily Show where he was doing the thing with Ronnie. And dude, his Mandarin is so freaking bad.
He spoke Mandarin in there?
He did. He tried.
I don't remember that.
He tried.
Oh, really?
And like you're right. He is 100% born and bred American. Like, his Mandarin is like, my Mandarin is similar. Like, I used to get teased by my family that I'm like a kind of a banana, yellow on the outside kind of thing and white on the inside.
Don't we all get accused of that?
Of something, right? Yeah. You're not Asian enough for some people, too Asian for other people. But whatever, man. I just like charts. Okay. So next question from Bruce. What do you think of Yang as a VP? Well, that might help you, Paget, because if the nominee's like, hey, I'm going to bring this Yang guy on.
Yeah, I think it depends on the matchup. Like, because I feel so strongly that we need universal basic income and that needs to be passed, I just worry that it won't be taken seriously in another administration, even if he is VP, and it wouldn't necessarily get passed because they didn't get into office on that platform. So it's much easier to tear down. I think obviously it would be great if he was VP, if he couldn't be the actual president, because he's going to be able to have some sort of like input and sway into how the administration is, positions itself and everything like that. But I don't know exactly how powerful could he really be as a VP? If, let's say, he was like placed with Warren and Warren totally denies automation, and she would never make him VP though, I don't think. But Yeah, I would love it to see him as VP, but I just don't really know if we're going to get all of the great policies and ideas out there in the same way as if he was president. I don't really know what that would be like. What about you, Tom? I think you know a little bit more about that dynamic.
I don't think it would hurt to have him closer to the center of power.
Yeah.
And while of course you'd want him in the driver's seat, if he's in the car, it's still like one more smart person in that administration.
Yeah.
And if you're Warren, if you have a white female on the top of the ticket and an Asian guy on the bottom, like that's not terrible for her.
No, it looks
political
good,
point of view,
but I don't think.
But it's not what we want. I get it.
No, I don't think she's going to do it simply because she says that automation's a good story, but it's not true. She can't take that back. Like she put that out there. I would respect her if she did take it back. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, that she would probably say, one of the things I've learned on the trail is the impact of technology on workers. And while in the past, I didn't think it was as existential, I've now seen more of the data and I've talked to more people and I realize we need to do more, blah, blah, blah. And then people will be like totally fine with her. Mm-hmm, I mean, you can see her like, these politicians, like what they evolve their positions.
Right, right.
All right. We are getting a crap load of questions. Someone asked, this is a quick one. Do you have a cat? I don't know if you have a cat.
Are you guys accusing me of being a crazy cat lady or something?
Is that they didn't ask it that way. In fact, the person said that he was asking for his girlfriend. So he wanted to be very clear. It's not like some kind of weird creepy question like my girlfriend wants to know if you have a cat.
I don't actually. I would actually like one. No, yeah.
No animals?
No.
Oh, not an animal person.
No, I am an animal person. I really do actually want a dog. That's what I want. I want a dog.
What type of dog would you get?
I'm torn between getting like a bigger dog, that could really feel like a more equal companion in size at least, or like a really cute, small, like nice, cute, fluffy one. I don't know.
Yeah, that cute, fluffy one wouldn't be stereotypical at all. Put that in your LV purse or whatever. I
don't have an LV purse, but
all
yeah.
Right, good for you. Someone was also asking if you would accept the role of like master of ceremonies or something like that. Like president, like how Yang has said, "Oh, I don't want to be like doing a lot of the social stuff as president."
Right.
Would you be willing to take on that role?
Of course, if it means that he gets to do more things, as president, that's actually going to help our country. Sure, why not?
All right. So you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, moving to DC. That'll be cool. Let's see. What's the next question? Oh my God, this person, Richard, probably agrees with you.
What?
Oh, you can't see it. He said Yang or F this country. He's Yang or bust, basically.
I wouldn't feel that way if Yang wasn't in this race, though. By the way, he just like totally. Oh yeah, wow, that's intense. Yang.
Yeah. He's pretty. He's all in. Someone was asking, and someone was asking what generation we are from. Are you comfortable talking about that, or do you want to move on to the next question?
What do you mean? What generation? You mean the YXZ?
Yeah, that would inform our ages.
I mean, I'm definitely a millennial. I know that. I just don't know what I put my what
sounds like a very
corresponds to
millennial
what.
Answer.
No, but I actually don't know what XYZ even means.
Yeah.
I get them all confused.
So you're a millennial. I think that will answer what people want to know. And I am from Generation X. So I just had my birthday yesterday. So I'm in my 40s. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. In fact, I knew I was getting old when for the Nerds for Yang merch shop, I was thinking about offering some hats and they had like 3 styles. And I was like, oh, this one is a really cool one. And then I looked at the name of the style, and it said dad hat. And I was like, what the hell? Because it had the curved brim. You know, it's kind of like worn in looking.
Yeah.
And because I don't like the straight with the tag and that kind of thing. But apparently that is what I'm, you know, I'm staying true to my demographic. Yeah. There you go.
That's very funny.
All right, here's a good one. You were talking about keeping it real. What is your least favorite Yang policy?
Okay, so I'm actually not exactly sure where he stands on this. Exactly. I just heard him kind of talk about it a little bit. When he was talking about like breaking up the big like tech companies or like the Facebook or the Google or whatever. And he said that he wasn't for it because tech doesn't work that way, and people are always going to gravitate to the number one kind of thing or whatever platform. I disagree in that I think Google absolutely needs to break up some of it, and I don't mean like a Google offshoot, like a Google X web browser or anything, but Google, the way it operates, especially with ads and things like that, is that they're the ones who like disseminate the ads. They're the ones who say which ads actually get counted and paid for. They're the ones who basically control all of the whole ad chain when it comes to marketing. And it can lead to some pretty corrupt things that people can't see but are happening in the background, where it makes it hard for other like more independent like ad networks or, you know, publishers to get actually a fair break or a fair share of the ad revenue. And so actually, I do think that Google does need to break up some of its chain of operations because it's becoming a bit of a monopoly. And so I don't know if Andrew really knows about all of that stuff, but, you know, I'm in digital advertising, or like I work part-time, you know, in digital advertising. So I am very aware of it, but it's a big problem. And so I think he just needs to be a little bit more educated on like how that whole thing works, because it does need to be broken up.
Got it. So you're for a more muscular approach to big tech.
When it comes to like how Google literally monopolizes the ads, ad revenue and all of that. Yes. That's just the one thing I'm talking about. I don't know about anything else, but yeah. Gotcha.
So for me, my least favorite is I'm not sold on the whole 16-year-olds voting thing. I'm not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not. Maybe this is the Gen X kind of like grumpy dad, but I don't know. I mean, we were just talking about how it's important to have informed voters picking our leaders, and I'm a little worried. I don't know. I just worry that when I was 16, okay, I was always into politics, but my friends were not. Yeah. And I don't know that they would really do a lot of homework before voting. What do you think?
Yeah, that is interesting. Like I definitely understand, because when I was 16, I didn't give
two
at all
shits.
any. Okay, can I say shit on your channel? Sorry, I'm trying to actually be respectful and not say bad words.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, the S word's fine.
The S word. I won't say the F word. I will not say the F word. But yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the other perspective on that, which I was thinking about, and I think it would be really, really good. That maybe part of the reason why younger people are not as engaged is because they're not really taught that in schools. And I think that if it was at 16, while people are still generally in high school, then they can start introducing conversations around politics in high school, and I think that would actually be very, very healthy and helpful in making people more politically active after high school, right? So if there's some bit of an institutionalized education around the political system, around, researching like different candidates and the issues and everything like that, I think it would make people just be more well-informed, because here's the thing. I also know a whole bunch of 30-year-olds who don't know anything that's going on right now and who are completely uninformed. And I do think there needs to be a little bit more education in schools. And I don't know if he's proposing that, but if that's complementary to voting age to 16, then I think that would actually be a good thing. But that's just my opinion about it. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, like we were saying, we won't agree on.
Yeah, totally. Right. Exactly.
All right, here's a question. Where was it? Oh, these chats are coming fast. Yang's VP. Who would you want Yang to pick as his VP?
Everyone everyone knows the answer to this. And actually, I'm curious to know what your
I don't know.
answer.
I don't know that your answer to this.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say Gabbard because I
Oh,
really like her. I think her stance on foreign policy is very much
yeah,
aligned with
yeah,
Andrew Yang's Yang doctrine. He shared on your channel, and
yeah.
I think she just carries a lot of weight. I think she has a lot of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just love to see her as VP. I think she'd make a very strong VP, and I would be comfortable with her taking the position as president if anything happened. So, what about you?
I love Tulsi as well. I
Mhm.
think I really find her super centered and
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
calm
Yes.
and a clear thinker.
Yes.
And I thought when she was in the debate with Harris, I thought she did the best job sort of challenging Harris's
Yes.
prosecutorial
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Um, and I also think it would be amazing to have a veteran on the ticket and
Mhm.
female representation on the ticket. So there's a
Yep.
lot of reasons why that would be great.
Mhm.
But I also, for whatever reason, I think we have to acknowledge that it's been hard for her to get traction in terms of support. And I
Yeah.
worry, like, well, whatever that is holding her back now, like, we'd have to convince ourselves would not be a problem in the general. And some people say, like, hey, nobody cares about the bottom of the ticket. Like, none of us remember well Clinton's running mate. So
Mm.
maybe, I think it was that dude.
Yeah. Wait, she had a running mate? Who's like, right?
He
I
was
don't
that
know.
sort of kind of forgettable dude. He's a white man.
Someone in the chat must know.
Yeah. Do you guys remember who was? And people, I've. Oh, let's see. No. Oh, nobody remembers so far.
Tim Kaine. Tim
Tim
Kaine.
Kaine. Okay, Tim Kaine. Yeah, Kaine. Kaine was so maybe I shouldn't be as concerned with Tulsi, and then it would be sort of that's the one your heart wants, at least for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Now, if I went with like a pure rational side of me,
Yeah.
then Warren would be the first one that comes to mind because
Really? You don't think she's going to alienate a whole bunch of people?
well, that's why she's the running mate. She's not the top of the ticket.
Yeah. Yeah.
She would alienate people, but she would completely help us get like massive Democratic turnout because if you had Yang and Warren, every Democrat should be super excited. I mean, the one
Yes.
group that we would not reach, we would need to work on is the African American voters because I don't think Yang has really figured out how to resonate as much as he can.
I feel like Yang's campaign is really overextended right now. Like the fact that they don't have the Spanish translation, I think that's a fairly big oversight, on their website. I know that people can like switch it to being like, Google Translate, but I get actually a lot of messages from people saying, hey, can you get it to Yang's campaign that they need to have translations on their website?
Yeah.
So, I think he's just trying to get
like his website's not available in Spanish yet. Is that true?
Apparently not. Like
Wow.
I get emails about that a lot. So,
what's interesting is that in terms of favorability by demographic, he actually has the most in terms of white, black, and Hispanic. Hispanic is the group where he has the most where the percent of that group that's favorable, very favorable, is the highest, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were saying in the live stream, when we talked about it in the previous stream, they were saying, oh, it's probably because he's acknowledging that immigrants from South America are not the cause of us losing jobs, and that it's more a technology, fourth industrial revolution thing. And maybe they feel like, okay, finally someone's like kind of like sticking up for the Hispanic Americans who are kind of being scapegoated for all of our ills.
Right.
Yeah. So, I agree with you that the campaign is probably going through some growing pains.
I think so too.
Like a startup. And
yep,
they
I
need
think
to
so.
figure out how to scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me see what other questions are before we go. Oh, by the way, we're now at 500 concurrent viewers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's kind of fun. Let's see what other questions do we have here. And guys, if you guys had a great question and I didn't get to it yet, feel free to put it back in, because the software I'm using only shows me up to a certain number of the most recent chats, and this has been going so fast. Here's a.
It's so funny.
Do you decorate your house? It looks amazing.
Okay, so kind of. I use like old furniture though, but like I will say I am proudly the person who came up with this idea, the three plate things. I got it on overstock.com. I think it was like $35. So
oh wow.
Yeah,
it looks nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nobody's asking me about my decorations, but I do have some very nice IKEA stuff.
I feel like your curtain is nice. I like your blinds. They're very like blackout blinds, quality.
Yeah,
blinds.
they're metal. And,
okay, no wonder.
Yeah, they're metal, and then they can open up all the way from a switch. It's like a big thing in Switzerland where in the summer you close them in the daytime, and it keeps the house cool. And then you don't have to spend as much on cooling the house.
Yeah, I love that. Energy. That's really cool.
Yeah. All right. Do we think a bigger name? Whoops. Hold on a sec. That's not the question. Do you think a bigger name Republican will challenge Trump? I do not think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think he's got this. I mean, he's got like 90% approval rating in the Republican Party. Now, I used to live in Massachusetts, and when I was there, we had a governor, Bill Weld, who was like an old school Republican, just like very fiscally responsible. But he was kind of like a New England Republican, so socially pretty like open-minded, and like didn't really focus on social issues as much. But I think that is like the old Republican Party, and that's kind of why I left, because people who like people like Weld, we're now kind of called Republicans in name only, which is kind of ironic because the current Republicans, many of them are advocating things that were never really part of the Republican Party's history. But yeah, there you go. Do you think that Yang Gang should try and reach Bernie Bros or abandon that demographic? What do you think about that?
I think that actually, okay, so here's what I think. I think that we should be open to them, but do I think that we are kind of wasting our time getting into like arguments with them and discussions with them online, as opposed to just trying to spread his name recognition to people who aren't as familiar with him? Yes, like I think that is not necessarily the best way to use our time as a group. I think that we could better use our time spreading the whole Yang message to people who do not know about him, because the Bernie Bros who are attacking Andrew Yang, burners. That's like really offensive to say Bernie Bros, but burners who are attacking Andrew Yang, like they're probably not going to be the highest conversion. We're not going to see the highest conversion rate there than we would with people who don't know about him.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I was looking at some data from the 538 blog, and they have this amazing chart which shows, actually, let me just see if I can share my screen briefly, and I will show you guys some cool data.
I love your data. I love you bringing up the data. Can
you see my screen now?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So on the left-hand side, it's each person's supporters, and then on the columns represent who else those supporters are considering. So for Biden, you see 47% of Biden supporters are also considering Warren.
Interesting.
So then you ask yourself, okay, well, who are we getting consideration from for Yang? Castro is 29%.
That is interesting.
Klobuchar, 22%.
Yeah.
And then Booker, 19%. So personally, and then if you say, so Sanders was a question, only 16% of Sanders voters are considering Yang. So I would probably go after the Castro, Booker, Klobuchar crowd.
Interesting.
You know?
That is such a cool. Wait, hold on. Keep that up. I just want to look at that for a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah, Castro, Klobuchar, the one who was like kind of laughing at him.
Yeah, although I think it was Harris's. Apparently, some people are saying no, it was Harris's mic. That was
actually
more,
so I heard from someone who's there that it was actually both of them.
Oh God.
And that Buttigieg rolled his eyes.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's so sad because the UBI is such a really elegant and intellectually sophisticated proposal that is backed by, you know, PhD economists and people who've really thought about these problems a long time. But it's being positioned as this kind of like gimmick and kind of like bribe. And I think the challenge is it's hard to explain UBI like in 30 seconds, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Very
but
true.
At any rate, like, yeah, Castro, I would go after the Castro people. And I think they're going to need to look for a new horse anyway.
Right? Yes, they are.
So, I mean, if you think, I mean, Castro, he kind of came across a little bit like a little bit of a jerk, right? With Biden. I mean, I get where he was going, but he was
when he went too far. Here's the thing, like I don't know why I feel sensitive about criticizing people's age, but I do. Like, I don't know why. I'm like, if I were that age, like, and someone was like telling me that I couldn't run a country because I'm over a certain age, that would be kind of sad because, you know, you might still have all of your cognition. But yeah, so when Castro was like, he was like, what, you just forgot what you said like 20 seconds ago? You just forgot? I mean, you said the exact opposite 20 seconds ago. Like it came off like he was really bullying him.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like it because it felt like he wasn't just attacking he was like, I don't know, bullying him.
It was personal. And he also like, he also looked like he was enjoying it a little too much. Like he was kind of, like smiling as he was saying it, like mocking. And it's like, hey, I don't love Biden. But this dude like has been through a lot of stuff. He sacrificed a lot for the country. You know, you can make your point without diminishing the person you know, kind of personally and making it kind of dominant. Yeah. So, but that means if Castro's, you know, I think he'll probably stay in for a little longer to try and regain his reputation, but then eventually he'll have to go, I would imagine. And his supporters, you know, maybe they join the Yang Gang. So maybe we should make some content welcoming Castro supporters. You know? And acknowledging why they like Castro and how we also like a lot of things about Castro. And there are some similarities with Yang. And Yang, you also get these other things that are really cool. So, and then for Klobuchar supporters, I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Biden, but we'll see. Let's see. Okay. I think we're now at an hour and people actually have been asking us to go to section 3.
Oh, okay, cool.
So let me give a little preface because I'm a little bit, you know, a little hesitant about this one. So hold on a second. So section 3, if we're going to talk about Shane, you get your lemon water ready, Paget. This is gonna be...
I mean, I've cooled off a little bit after talking to you. You've like zened me out a little bit on this. So,
let's start. And before we even talk about Shane, so just for people who are not super interested in, let's say, Asian American issues or Asian, like the role of Asian Americans in society, discrimination, whatever, like, just a heads up that's what we're going to be talking about. And we get that that's not everybody's top issue. And for us, I mean, at least it's not my number one issue. My number one issue is replacing Trump, but it is something that I feel strongly about growing up as an Asian American, you know, in the US and stuff. So why don't we start with Paget? You've been kind of active around kind of Asian American issues before Yang, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like produced 2 seasons of a series that I wrote and I starred in, and it was really important for me to have proper Asian American representation in those. And this was before Crazy Rich Asians, so I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just jumping on the Crazy Rich Asians, craze, because I saw how diminished like Asian male representation was in the media in particular, and I
Mm.
just thought that that was really unfair. And so when I created something, I wanted it to basically like add something positive, add something new. And so yeah, I am I am very aware of Asian American issues and Asian Americans being silenced, being like thrown away a lot of the time, just not having a voice, you know. So yes, I am I'm more sensitized to this, and I also grew up in a predominantly white hometown, and a lot of my childhood friends are Caucasian. The majority of them are, and I used to get teased a lot, and I used to always have to like stand up for myself, and not a whole lot of other people would do that with me. So it was like very me against like everyone else a lot of the time. So it is a sensitive topic for me because it's hard to imagine how that didn't inform my insecurities at that time, how long it took me to feel like a comfortable, secure, confident person, having to deal with that in my childhood. And so yeah, this is an important topic for me because it's personal. And anyway, yeah, so you go ahead. But that's, yes, I have been involved.
Yeah. Before I share my side, what part of the country did you grow up? Did you grow up in the West Coast or?
Yeah, no, in Los Angeles, but and so we didn't like live in Malibu, but I went to high school at Malibu High. So it's a very small high school. It's very cliquish. It was like Mean Girls. I don't know if you guys saw that movie.
Oh.
It was very much like that. And I was like one of maybe 3 Asians in my year, but I was the only one who would actually stand up for myself. So it felt very lonely in that regard. But yeah. What about you?
Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, and generally in the whole town. The first town we lived in, there was us, and there was like one other family that was Asian.
Yeah. Wow.
And then in the second town, like there were like 2 or 3. I think there was like a Filipino family and maybe like a Japanese one. So it's a near and dear topic to me as well, because I remember always feeling like a permanent foreigner, even though I was born in the United States and my parents are citizens, and but I remember growing up, and I shared this on my like sort of Yang story or whatever. But I grew up where the most popular movie when I was in like junior high was 16 Candles.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so like Long Duck Dong was something I was called a
Jeez.
lot, right? And then I also remember going to stores, and I would just be walking with my brother or with my mom, and then we'd walk by strangers and they would just sort of like mock us, making like kung fu noises or like fake like sounds that they think sounds
Fake
like Chinese,
sounds.
like, and you're like, it's like, dude, you don't even know me. Like, leave me
Yeah.
alone. And so yeah, it was not easy growing up. I think the people growing up now, especially in certain like more diverse parts of the country, have it better than maybe in the past, and hopefully it'll get better still. But one interesting thing was like, I think it wasn't until the 60s that Chinese people of Chinese background were allowed to vote, because there was this Chinese Exclusion Act where,
Right.
a lot of Asian people were not able to own property and stuff, which is kind of funny because you never hear about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is because the Asian American community has not been politically active,
Right.
has not made a lot of noise, and the general modus operandi has been like, oh, just put your head down, work hard, and don't worry about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I certainly don't want to fixate on this, but I do think media representation shapes how people think about different groups.
It 100%
right?
does. Yeah.
And so it's like, I remember for my study abroad year in college, I went to Hong Kong for a year. And it was so weird seeing ads with Asian male models, and you turn on the news and the anchor is some Asian guy, and an Asian girl, but like I wasn't used to seeing that, right? Or the CEOs of companies were people that look like me, And so that was kind of cool. And then when I came back, I decided I definitely want to live in a part of the country where there's more kind of equal representation or like more diversity. So that's why we ended up living in Seattle for like 15 years, because it has a pretty strong, and at that time we had an Asian American governor, which was Gary Locke. It was the first time. And so that was super cool. So, there's a lot of things to be optimistic about. But at the same time, we're not sort of post-racial yet.
No. And I don't even think that that's necessarily the goal. I feel like it's just a matter of it's literally just don't dehumanize someone because of their race. We have differences. I look different than you, look different than the other next person. It's not about saying, okay, let's all be colorblind. That's never going to happen. And I don't think that's the goal. I think it's about celebrating people's differences and recognizing the differences and then fully accepting them as your equal. That is what it's about for me. I don't want people to be colorblind. I just want them to respect the different colors, and treat them as equals, in every regard. That's it. That's all I'm saying, Yeah.
So, what's been really kind of crazy about timing of news events is, for me, I shot this my Yang story thing a couple days ago. And my angle was my Yang story is, I think this so cool that we have an Asian American gaining this far in consideration for the Democratic Party nomination. And I said, growing up, this would have been unheard of. And I found this picture of the Reagan administration, and it was just mostly almost all white men. And wouldn't that be cool if we had someone like Andrew Yang in there with a really diverse cabinet? And I also said, my kids, I have 2 boys, 9 and 11, and they think that Andrew Yang is they like him, they love him, but they don't know how unusual it is.
Yes, I remember you saying that.
Right?
Yeah.
They this dude is in the top 5 or 6 right now out of a field of 24, came from nowhere. And in my opinion, is the only one that's kind of moving up. Okay, with Warren as well. Yeah. But that's a pretty good sort of he's already breaking ceilings.
Yes.
And so what was funny was then when we were talking about this stream, I did a tweet saying, "Hey, Paget's coming on the live stream. What do you want us to talk about?" And someone said, "Oh, can you talk about Shane Gillis or Gillis?" And I was like, "Shane who?" And so, I fired up the Google and found the articles.
Yep.
And then at first I was like, "Oh, that's annoying." Some guy saying some slurs, but to be honest, I wasn't shocked. And then I clicked a little further and found the videos that he recorded of himself with his buddy Matt. And when you watch them talk about Asian people in a really dehumanizing and hateful way, and it's not even part of a bit, it's just 2 angry people, kind of pooping on another race.
Yeah.
And sort of, dehumanizing them and marginalizing them and complaining I I hate it when Chinese people try and speak English, and it's like,
yes,
what?
yes.
And
It was so dehumanizing in its nature. It was, I mean, it wasn't even like, here's the thing, like if it was even just saying like doing a broad generalization and that being, you know, racist and everything, but it was purely out of a lot of ignorance, you
yeah,
know, and you could see that it was out of ignorance. They just haven't had much contact with Asian Americans and things like that. But I sensed something more vile underneath, like an undertone, like, you know, of that whole conversation, that like, it just underlined a vileness that underlined the entire conversation, right? That they knew that um, they had so much contempt for Asians that they could say like, oh, it's so, I hate hearing them trying to speak English. Like, do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I just felt like and his apology, whatever the apology was, it was not an apology. It was him making an excuse. It was him saying, look, I'm a comedian. I'm going to try one this and that. And that. If it doesn't hit, then whatever. But like, you know, that's what happens. And it's like, you don't need to go, like, there's plenty of amazing comedians who do not dehumanize. So it's actually showing a weakness in his comedy. But I don't feel comfortable, okay, like having him be on one of the most culturally influential TV shows that people watch, like being represented up there without having apologized, without showing any sort of understanding or remorse, and just letting him go like scot-free without actually having to like come to terms with what he actually was saying and doing, you know. And he has a long history of this. He got fired from a comedy club because of this, because of all of his homophobic, transphobic, all of this like horrible stuff, right? So he's clearly not apologetic. And I do not think that that should just go completely like unpunished, at least like by
don't reward
mainstream
it.
media. Yes, rewarded, right?
Yeah,
Rewarded. And so that's why I have a huge problem with him here. I think he should move on with his life. I don't wish anything bad on him. You know, he should have forgiveness if he kind of like, you know, actually takes back what he says in a sincere way. But he should not be then one of the cast members of Saturday Night Live. I do not think that's okay. And they already said that they were going to fire him. And now it looks like they might not fire him because of what Andrew Yang said. And I wouldn't believe for a second if he said, yeah, I'm really sorry. Like, shouldn't have done it, because he has a long history of it. And if you listen to it, you just know, you can tell the difference between ignorance and just flat out like actual like racist sort of dehumanizing sort of like, I don't know, thinking toward an entire race, right? I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion on it. So I didn't like it.
yeah. No, I also didn't like it. I also think that Saturday Night Live has such a huge influence and a huge platform, and there are so many comedians struggling every day trying to get that opportunity, that you could find another person who's super funny and doesn't record podcasts just slamming a whole race on a regular basis. That he shouldn't get the role. Now, I'm not saying like he should be excommunicated from the country, but it's like, look, there's a lot of people applying for this job. We're only going to pick the person we think is best for the show. You have a lot of weird stuff in your background that is going to, number one, alienate a lot of viewers. It's going to affect our advertisers. And frankly, as a show, we don't agree with that kind of humor. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't think it's okay to just slam an entire group in the way that you've done. Right. And I think that the thing that really broke the camel's back for me, because I'm generally like a libertarian, so I don't really want to get too like overly prescriptive.
Yeah.
But when I saw that video of the Skank podcast or something, and they were kind of like mocking a person with Down syndrome and saying, oh, you know, we should just like, you know, finish them off early when they're young and all this kind of stuff. to me, I felt like, all right, like this is not a bit. This is not like, look, you could say Chappelle really pushes boundaries. But I find that he does it in a way where like it's at least a well executed bit. And he's also pretty open about calling out everybody.
Yeah.
And he's not and then for him, whenever he does his Asian jokes, like I know his wife is Asian, so I'm like, well, you a little bit of like it's kind of almost self-deprecating because he's clearly has awareness of Asian Americans.
Right.
And whereas I think, and I don't want to sound like I'm apologizing for Shane, because to be clear, I do not think he should be on SNL, and I hope they remove him and make that clear. But I do also feel like this guy probably grew up with very little interaction with Asian Americans. And his only interaction has probably been in like restaurants with people who are recent immigrants who he had difficulty communicating with. And he's probably got his own demons and he's feeling bad about himself, and it makes him feel better to kind of put other people down. And no one's perfect, and we all go through our stuff, but that doesn't mean you get to be on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Again, if it was one conversation, but he has such a long history of it, and obviously people have told him like that makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable. What you're saying is not like funny, and it's also just not right or okay. And you shouldn't be spewing out these kinds of ideas and thoughts and things like that to the public and like making people the butt of your jokes. He's been told this apparently for years. And if he can't somehow course correct a little bit, then I just don't see him really reforming, if I'm being honest. Or even like, here's the thing, he can say this in his private life, with no one around, can't control that. So go off, say it in your private life. Don't record it. Don't put it out. Don't put it as part of your comedy skits. But once you do that, it is open. It is fair game for criticism. And you are going to be a figurehead, especially if you're on Saturday Night Live. And I guess what bothered me a little bit, and I know people are just going to hate on me for this, and it's fine, is that in my opinion, I think it was amazing that Angie Yang was like, let's meet up. I am open to having a conversation with you. I think that is exactly what we need more of in this country. We need to have more open conversations with the other side if we don't agree with each other. I would love to see that, by the way. I would love to see them having a real conversation. I wish he didn't comment on the fact that he should definitely not get fired from SNL. I wish he just did not comment on whether or not he would get fired from SNL. I wish because he is. Hello?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what happened. Yeah. But calling that shot for all of the other Asian Americans in this country who are not running for president or who have not yet figured everything out, right? Who are not yet adults, for Asian Americans who are still in college and high school, growing up, and who are going to actually watch Saturday Night Live and see this guy's history. And, I can't support that because Andrew Yang, he doesn't himself have to deal with it. But what about all of the people who are going to be like, all the kids who are growing up and going to be watching Saturday Night Live, knowing that there is someone who is an actively like hateful, racist person on the show, and people are like applauding him? I don't know. That's just my opinion. I just don't think he should have called that shot, I guess. And apparently it looks like he might not actually get fired. Actually, I think because of Andrew Yang's tweet. And that's what I hoped or wished, is that didn't happen, that it was more decided by the people. But yeah.
So this is where I know you and I have a slightly different opinion. For Andrew, I kind of feel like he did what he had to do, which is he basically said, hey, I've been the recipient of a lot of that kind of talk all my life. It's hurtful. It's dehumanizing. It's not acceptable. Shane, I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Da da da. But I think I think he needed to be careful about not sort of really hanging his hat on this and going really far and saying, Shane, you must be fired, because I think it would turn off a lot of potential voters.
Yeah, I don't think he
right?
should have said that. He definitely shouldn't have commented on whether or not he should get fired. I think if he just said, I would love to have an open conversation with you. I don't support using hateful language as part of your comedy, as part of comedy in general. That would have been perfect. It would have been great for his campaign, right? It would have opened up that dialogue. It would be great exposure anyway. But for him to then say he shouldn't get fired and to weigh in on that, I guess that is my only issue with it, because I think there are so many other Asian Americans who feel the way I did watching all of those things, all those videos, not just one instance, all of those videos, who were like, wow, this guy is really dehumanizing us, and he's putting all this stuff out there for everyone to see, and he's been doing this for years, and he's going to be continued. I don't know. That was my issue, but I think but whatever. I mean, we're all going to, disagree with some of the things he says, or some of us are going to, and that's just one of the things that I disagree with.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people out there who are maybe thinking to themselves, like, come on, people are comedians. They make jokes all the time. People used to make jokes about every group, blah, blah, blah. That's like comedy. I would encourage you to actually watch some of Shane's stuff, because it's not like, oh, people are saying, oh, Chinese people, they can't drive. It's not like that.
Yeah. If they say Chinese people can't drive, I'd be like, okay, kind of inappropriate, but you know what, whatever. Okay, it's not the same as literally saying like Asian people are retards. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the same freaking thing. So people I just don't have actually watched his videos.
So let me ask you, let me zoom out for a minute, because I think Shane is representative of another trend where he even himself said in an article that what he has found is that you can never make fun of the police. You can't make fun of certain groups, but you can always make fun of Asians. That's the last group that any comedian, it's free, it's open season.
Yep.
And I think he's actually reflecting the reality of our society. That
yes,
because if he had taped a podcast talking about what he thought of Hispanics or Muslims or gays or women, and he did it in the same way he talks about Asians, like, oh, I hate them, I can't only like to look at them, all this shit. And then
but also, did you get the sexualization,
let's go on Patreon and raise money, and Matt, you and me are going to go to Thailand.
How is that okay? But anyway, okay.
Yeah, completely.
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. And when my Wendy, my wife, watched that, I had to tell her to hey, dude, just breathe. It's just some idiot on the internet. She's like, we gotta do something. This is ridiculous. So I think he does touch on something where if you were to say really hateful things about Jewish people or about Black people, there's a certain understanding that there's a clear line. You do not cross it. And I don't think there's an understanding for Asians. Do you think the comedians or the media know what is what can't you do to Asians?
Exactly. I mean, also the fact that he even stated that he's like, we found out that it's okay to be racist against Asians. He even himself said that he's racist against Asians. He even said that. That's kind of problematic that he's actually even circulating that it's okay to be racist to Asians. But yes, I agree with you that he is reflecting the truth, I think, of, and so I guess that was also my issue too, is that Asian Americans are not at a point right now, culture, in mainstream media, in the mainstream conversation, where being the bigger person is saying, hey, look, I get it. You've had some misinformation. You're not educated about this, but I forgive you. We're not at that point. Like, at least from my perspective, we're at the point that actually being the bigger person is actually speaking out against it, because too many times we have let everything slide. That is why we're in that, exactly what you're saying, the condition that we're in, where it's okay to make fun of us, because too many times we have said, no, it's okay. We'll just keep our heads down and like stay quiet and let you do your thing. That's fine. Just don't attack us. Too many, that is what the norm is. So actually being the bigger person is stepping outside of that norm and saying, look, that isn't okay. Like, I'm an Asian American, and for once I'm going to stand up for myself, as opposed to I'm an Asian American and I'm going to do what I've always done and just say, yeah, you're all right. You're good, dude. We're cool. Because that has really not done us too many favors in the media historically. So that's also problematic, is that it's not the same, like, for every single group. You know what I mean? Like, racism is racism across the board, but Asian Americans have a very specific kind of racism that has been allowed far too long. And I think being the bigger person is actually being honest about that and actually standing up against it, because not a lot of people do. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Why don't we do this? Let's take some viewer questions, if there are any, about this topic, and then we'll pivot and wrap up on a more positive note, talking about maybe what we can do going forward to get Andrew Yang in the White House. But before we move on to kind of the going forward on the general campaign stuff, I did want to see if there's anyone that wants to ask questions, and I'll try and go. Okay, Rob wants to know: do Asian Americans like Caucasians? I love Caucasians.
Wait, is that a real question?
I guess so.
I haven't met an Asian American who is like, oh, those white people, I hate them. Like, no, I don't think that's a real thing. I do not. The Asian Americans, I don't think like Caucasians who disrespect them. I think that's the thing.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay, Andrew Smith. I think this is a question. College admissions. So I think he's referring to, there are Harvard court cases about admissions and Asian Americans kind of being disadvantaged. What's your take on that?
I do believe in affirmative action. What I don't believe in is actually saying, all right, we have too many Asians here. What we need to do is we need to cut off the Asians in order to let other people in, as opposed to how about cut off some of the other majorities who are getting in here, not out of meritocracy, but because they have a lot of money. Like, why don't we like take away from some of those, right? The overprivileged students who aren't actually getting in out of merit, and then let more other minorities like in. Like, I just think that it shouldn't just be like no affirmative action or affirmative action. It's like the right kind of affirmative action. How about let's give people who are economically at a disadvantage economically. I think that's the most important thing. And we give them a boost. And then those people who have been given all of the privileges in the world, why don't we say, hey, you didn't do so well in school, but even though you have a lot of money, like, let's actually like take down those admissions a little bit. Let's cut away from those admissions. That's how I feel about it. So yeah, I don't think it's fair to basically like, I don't know, like limit the number of Asian Americans to get into a school in general, just simply because there are too many of them. Who knows how hard they worked, Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. My position is, I think if you zoom out and you look at American history, there's no question that many groups have been disadvantaged systematically for generations, and access to higher education, especially elite higher education, is a very effective way to help those members of those disadvantaged groups kind of break that cycle. And I think the reality is that when you do that, there's only a fixed number of seats, in each entering class. And so it will have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think the other interesting complexity is that Asian American applicants are overrepresented if you look at grades and test scores. So like, would Harvard be better off if it were like 70% Asian? I don't think so. I think there's value in a diverse mix.
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will totally agree with you on is people get really fired up about affirmative action when it applies to African Americans and Hispanics. And they're like, this is not fair. And I understand like the frustration, especially like if you're a parent and your kid is not from an underrepresented group, then you feel like, hey, my kid's like kind of, not on a level playing field. What we don't talk about is the one thing is the athletic programs. So I'll give you an example. I went to a very small liberal arts college, and there was like 1,500 students in the whole college. So it's like 400 per class. But we had to field an entire football, lacrosse, hockey, and soccer team. Like a football roster is like 50 people. So when you think about that, at some point, your recruited athletes, if you want to have winning teams,
right,
can now represent like 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 students. Way more than African Americans or Hispanics who may have, sort of gotten a little extra boost. But nobody complains about that. And so it's one of those things where you'd love, and that the colleges, I don't think they release this data very publicly. But if you looked at the pie chart of students at, whatever, fancy university, Stanford or whatever, and you say, well, what percent are playing in the Division I Stanford teams that win consistently? And maybe they found all of the genius, linebackers and linemen in football in America, or maybe their scores are probably not consistent with the typical Stanford student. And then you do hockey and you do all of the sports, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have another part of the pie, which is donors. And then another part of the pie, which is legacies. Oh, my grandfather went to Stanford. My mom went to Stanford. Like, there's that.
Yep.
So what's funny is, like, at the end of the day, that class is not some like pristine meritocracy with just a slice of affirmative action. The whole freaking class, most of it has some angle.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
everybody has a little Post-it note on their application.
Yeah.
And now a lot of some people don't, and those guys are like, wow, you totally swam upstream.
Yeah.
But so my take on the college admissions thing is that it's complicated. It's not great if you're the parent of the kid, or if you're the kid. There are reasons for trying to create more diversity, but I also think we should call a spade and look at all of the advantaged groups, and they're not all African American and Hispanics.
Right. Yes. Yeah, no, it's true. But I mean, also we're over prescribing college as it is anyway. So those institutions are going to have to really restructure at some point soon, or they're going to have to like kind of die away a little bit. I mean,
what was so fascinating, you being in LA, I guess, have you been following the whole USC thing with the parents that paid to have their kids go to?
A little bit. I mean, it's okay. So from my perspective, and I know this sounds but it's kind of funny that they're paying to get their kids into USC, which, yes, it's a solid school, but like, it's not like the greatest school in the country. I'm like, why are you paying USC? Like, wouldn't you want to aim a little bit like higher if you're going to pay to get them in there? That's what I actually find. For some reason, that's my biggest takeaway. I'm just like, that's kind of funny. Okay.
Maybe it was convenient because they'd be closer to home.
Yeah,
because the parents
maybe.
are in LA or something.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just wrong for them to even also do that on their kids' behalves who don't even necessarily want to go to college or
Yeah.
don't want to go to USC.
You know, the other interesting thing, in my opinion, is I think the fact that these very wealthy uh, families with a lot of advantages had to resort to this and felt so desperate that they
Yeah.
broke all these laws, to me, is a symptom of how concerned everyone is for our kids' futures,
Oh, yes, that's a good
right?
point. That's a good
Because it's
point.
like,
Yeah.
oh shit, if we don't get, little
Yeah.
Jane into USC, she's going to be like totally, screwed. And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I even saw it in Seattle with the pressure to go to like the best preschool because, you
Yeah.
need to set up your kid. And I think the underlying anxiety is like, we're all thinking, well, we're not sure if these kids are going to have great job opportunities. So we need to do everything they can to kind of get a leg up, because maybe Facebook's not going to hire 1 million engineers. And even if they did, maybe my kid won't be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's a really good point. That yeah, that's interesting.
It kind of goes back to why I think Yang's
Yes.
position on UBI and kind of acknowledging like we're going through a transformation.
Yep.
And I think we all kind of like, everybody kind of in their subconscious knows that there used to be a time where in America, you work hard and your kid goes to college, like they'll be better off than you will be.
Right.
And I think the data suggests that that's no longer the case.
Not the case. I already know people who are my age who like went back to school and then they can't find a job. And I'm like, why in the heck did you do that? Now you're even more in debt and they're trying to find a job in finance, and we know that there are a lot of jobs in finance that are going to be automated away soon. So it's sad. It's really sad that people are looking to college to be like the magic bullet or whatever, but it's clearly not. And it's wasting a lot of people's monies and time.
Yeah. So now, before we wrap up, Paget, I did want to get your thoughts on one thing that I think you're really great at that I suck at is thinking of ways to help the Yang Gang get more engaged and get more active and be more kind of like how everyone can help. Because like I'm a little bit of an introvert, like me and my charts, I'm just going to explain them and then like, goodbye. but I think you are more like proactive. You come up with stuff that people can do.
No, I actually don't come up with stuff. I actually just like take cues from what the creative things that other people are doing. And I try and like help magnify them because, people are super creative and I'm not actually that creative when it comes to stuff. But like, for instance, yesterday, and I'm going to do a video on this, but like we went to USC, like just a little group of us, and we're just handing out business cards and like chatting like YouTube Andrew Yang. And it makes like those things make a big difference, right? Going to like hopefully a very highly populated area with people who might not know much about him at all or be paying attention. I think that's really great. And the thing is that people don't realize is that it's actually really fun when you're able to find other people who are passionate about something that you're passionate about and sharing in this experience of working together and doing it together. And it was literally like a group of 4 of us. It doesn't even take that many people, but I mean, you form new friendships. So I would really highly encourage people to just get connected with people in their area, even if it's just like 2 other people. Like that's really cool. You're going to have so much fun doing it, and you're going to feel good about it. And then, so the fun factor should be motivating. And then the phone banking. So, I personally don't like to talk to someone while someone else is next to me talking to someone. But what they do at these phone banking parties is it's just like getting together in a space. You can go in your own little corner, or in a different room or whatever. And then you're all phone banking together, so you don't feel as alone and you actually feel like supported in some way. So we did that. The thing that I found disappointing is that Gianmarco, the guy who leads SoCal Yang Gang here, is he had a phone banking party yesterday, and he was like, yeah, like 7 to 10 people showed up, and that was amazing. And the sad thing is that they basically brought about a third of all phone bankers in the entire country. Like, they brought 7 phone bankers, and out of the entire country, only 30 people were like logged in to phone bank, or so maybe a quarter. But
Wow.
I was like, that's really depressing that literally you made up a quarter of all the phone bankers in the entire country. And this is supposed to be whatever weekend, I forget what it's called. So it's literally just like doing little things and feeling good about it, because that is how we're going to win this election. If everyone got like their family members to be Yang Gang and or spent like 30 minutes a week phone banking, you don't even have to be good at it. Literally, if you even just said, hey, please YouTube Andrew Yang, he's running for president. Like, and then he hung up. I almost think that that's like enough. And it's like, oh, okay, who's this Andrew
Maybe
Yang?
I should. Yeah. So have you done it from home as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So some people were asking like, hey, you need a laptop. How does that work? What's it like? Could you just give like a little quick summary of what the experience is like?
So you do need something like a web browser. So whether that's a desktop or a laptop, and then you just need a phone. So it can be your cell phone, it could be a landline, any kind of phone. And then you actually just like connect the calls through the laptop, through the browser. And I did a video on how to log into the browser and everything. But yeah, you do need a computer and you do need some sort of like phone. And it's very, very easy. And yes, some people will hang up on you, but literally if you just get Andrew Yang across. So actually in advertising, you might know this, Tom, there's like a threshold. And I think the threshold, they say it's like 7. So people need to see something or hear something 7 times in order for it to sink in. I actually think that threshold's about 14. I think it's double than that. So actually every time you say his name, every time you get it out there to someone, it could be the 3rd time they're hearing it, the 7th time, but you never know where they are to get past that threshold to then go look him up or take him seriously. So, if I think people underestimate the power of just, even if it's awkwardly said, his name, to people.
And how someone was asking, how do you know what numbers to call?
Okay, so because like the dialer on your browser, that will do it automatically for you. So you just have to hit like, okay, end call, and then it'll ask you, it'll pop up this tiny thing and say, are you ready for the next call? And then you just click no or yes, I'm ready for the next call. And then it'll automatically connect you to the next call. So there's very little dialing to do once you're actually dialed into the system. It just does it automatically on your phone.
Nice. And you see the person's name, so you
do see the person's name, and you sometimes see their age. But a lot of times I don't even use their name. I should probably do that. I just say, hey, I am, a volunteer for the campaign, and I just want to ask you a couple questions,
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember I did that back in 2008 for the Obama campaign. And I think at that time, the technology was not as good as it is now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I think the hardest thing was doing the first call.
Yes.
And then once you kind of like get into it, then you're like, oh yeah, I can get to this for a little while.
Exactly. Yeah. And like people will hang up, or they'll be like, not interested, whatever. But it's like, so I guess it's kind of a, so what, you kind of have to get to that. And I see someone's asking, will an iPad work? I think an iPad would work.
And then someone else is saying like, well, what site, where do I go to do this?
So I have a video on it, but you go to yang2020.com, and then you go to, I think you go to events, and then you search down and you'll see like, it says like phone banking parties or phone bank for Andrew Yang. You click on the one that is on the date that corresponds to today or whenever it is you're doing it. And then it'll literally like have a link for you to click, and then it'll go straight into, I think it'll go straight into the Slack where it'll show you how to log in. But I do have a video on it. It's a tiny bit complicated when you're getting started, but then it's very, very easy from there.
All right, Paget, let's just quickly show them. So I'm going to go yang2020.com. And they'll land here. So you're saying they should go to events?
Yeah. It's kind of strange. Yeah. I know it is real. I honestly do.
Oh,
So,
look at that. Call for
yang.
yang.
So is it September 15th? So click on that one.
Sign up.
Yeah. And then you don't even actually need to sign up. You don't need to do that if you don't want. But on number 1, it says join the Yang Slack. You literally click on that link.
Opening this link in a separate tab.
And then if you need to sign up for Slack, you are going to sign up. But that's the link.
Yeah.
That's
so
it.
It's that easy. It's
very, very easy.
It's not under volunteer, huh? That's so weird.
Well, you can do it it's the long way to do it, where you sign up to volunteer, you say yes, you phone banking.
You're right. This is events is the way to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You're not messing around.
No, I don't sign up for everything. Just do it. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't be bothered with that admin.
So I have one last thing that I'll share, which is as much as the Twitter and Facebook stuff is important, and I think it does have high leverage and high reach, I do think we should never underestimate the importance of talking to friends and family in real life. And I know a lot of people are like hardcore Yang Gang online, but then when they're with friends and family, maybe they feel like, oh, I don't want to come across like too kind of cultish or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've given that up. Like every chance I get, I talk about, oh, did you hear, like, we're 1 point behind Buttigieg, or we're 2 points behind Harris, or you tell people, we're already ahead of Booker and we're ahead of Castro.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? Yeah. I'm like, we're 5 out of 24, and let me send you, this great interview he did, or he was, here's a summary of everything he said at the last debate. And I was so I had been doing that for a few months, and just yesterday or a few days ago, I was at this lunch with a group of parents of kids in my kids' school, and we were talking about the election, and it was so great. There was this one person who was kind of like, Andrew, what, a few months ago, and I kept like bugging her, and then someone else asked her, hey, so who do you think is best positioned to beat Trump? And she said, I think it's going to be Andrew Yang. And I was like, really? Whoa. And I had to like withhold, because I was like, woo, I was like inside, like
right. You want to turn it,
But and she was just like totally making the argument. And I think, a small part of that was a few conversations that we had over time. And so just like, I know everybody's amazing online, and we should continue to do that. That's mega high leverage. But if you could find an angle to bring it up with other people, like at, even like at lunchtime in the cafeteria, if I run into someone, I say, oh, did you see the debate this week? What did you think?
Yeah, like, that's exactly what I say. Yeah. Things like that.
I don't open with like, you need to support Andrew Yang. But, there's always like a gentle way to get in there. And I think if we all do that, like, I mean, right now there's hundreds of people on this call. Like, so if we each talk to 2 or 3 people, that's thousands, over 1,000 that will hear about Andrew Yang. And to your point, they may need to hear it 7 to 10 to 14 times before, and that's fine. Because a lot of us needed to hear it a few times before we got on board. Yeah. Any final words for the audience before we wrap up, Paget? Anything else you want to share or talk about?
I don't think so, but I just want to say that for you guys who are actually still here from the beginning, like, congratulations.
412, yeah.
Dang, you got through this. Like, that's some amazing stamina right there. And hope, we didn't alienate too many of you guys talking about our Shane Gillis. Sorry, I have a short memory span. Yeah,
Gillis
stuff, but just being real, just keeping it real. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I thank everybody who indulged us for that conversation, because I know it's not as near and dear to everyone's history. And everyone has gone through a lot of tough stuff when they were growing up, and I'm sure many people had much worse and more difficult challenges than I did, but it's a real thing. And
yeah, it's just validating that, hey, it's real.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll have to get you back on again. It was a wonderful conversation, Paget.
It was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I have a feeling you might become a regular. And I also enjoyed us having a shared chart time. That wasn't planned, but I was like, oh, let's just share that 538 chart. Hopefully we can.
Yeah,
do
I
that
love
again.
that. I love that. Thank you,
All
Tom.
right. Well, you have a great rest of your day.
You
and
too.
We'll see you again soon.
Bye, guys. Bye, Tom.
Goodbye, nerds. Peace.
Nerds.
Okay.